Good morning. It is Tuesday, May 12th, and today we can prepare for our graphing sinusoidal functions test by practicing. So there's really not too much to this unit. It's a lot of little things, but if you understand all those little things, then there's really not too much that we need to go over. So first off, you need to know what your four waves look like. Sine, both positive and negative, start at the midline and end at the midline. Positive sign goes up first, negative sign goes down first. Positive and negative cosine do not start at the midline. Positive cosine starts at the max, negative cosine starts at the min. All the waves have 5 points, and they all start and end at the same y value. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you need to know what your four waves look like. Again, sine, both positive and negative, start at the midline. Positive cosine starts at the max. Negative cosine starts at the min. For all 5 points, when you're graphing, I need to see those 5 points. Amp, sine, freq, x, shift. That is the key to everything. That's the structure for everything. Amp, sine, freq, x, shift. That's how the equation is written. So that's how we pull the information, and that's how we write the equation. Amplitude is the I guess I'll just talk about everything. Amplitude is the distance from the midline to the max or min. Frequency, how many waves from 0 to 2 pi. More importantly, frequency is 2 pi over the period. Period is the wavelength. It's how long it takes to make one full cycle. It is very important that you understand that, how long it takes to make one full cycle. And you also need to know that period is 2 pi over the frequency. The shift is the midline, the average value of the function, and when you're writing the equation, we're going to find midline using the min plus max over 2. So there's two types of questions. There's graphing and there's writing the equation. When I'm graphing, I'm going to use amp, sine, freq, x, shift to get all the important pieces of information. Then I'm going to find the period using 2 pi over the frequency. And again, I found the frequency in part 1 here. Now I'm going to draw on the midline and make dashes for my max and min. On the y-axis, for my x-axis, I make 4 dashes, and I put the period at the end of the 4th dash. Once I have that, I go back to my appropriate wave, and I draw it in. When I'm writing the equation, I'm starting with the midline, which is min plus max over 2. Once I have the midline, I can find all the other information. I'm going to determine the period by determining where the full wave ends. And once I have the period, I can find the frequency doing 2 pi over the frequency. That's all the information I need. Once I have all that, I just substitute it into amp, sine, freq, x, shift, and I'm done. And when you're dealing with models or anything that's a bit more complicated, or even if it's not more complicated, draw a little picture that has your min, your max, your midline, and your period. If you want to chop this up, you can do the period divided by 4. That will give you how much each dash is worth. But for most questions, you don't need to do that. But it is possible that there will be a question where you will. So let's get into it. It wants me to graph one full wave of this. So amp, sine, freq, x, shift. Amp, sine, freq, x, shift. Of course, you have a song. You can go on my YouTube channel and check that out. Amp is what's in front. Amp is 2. It's a positive cosine. Then comes the freq. Let's do this one. Amp, sine, freq, shift. Freq is 4. Shift is negative 3. The other piece of information I need is the period, which is 2 pi over the frequency, which is 2 pi over 4. And I can reduce that to pi over 2. So I start with my midline, my shift, which is negative 3. My amplitude is how high and how low, so I'm going up 2 to negative 1, down 2 to negative 5. That's my y-axis. My x-axis, I make 1, 2, 3, 4 dashes, and my period goes at the end of the fourth dash. Now it's a positive cosine. Positive cosine starts at the max and then goes down from there. So I'm going to start at my max, then midline, then min, then midline, then max. Make sure all the points line up with your dashes and your y-axis, and make sure they all also line up with your midline, your min, and your max. And that's it. Draw your wave and you're done. Amp, sine, freak X, shift. Amp is 3. It's a positive sign. Freak is a half. Shift is -5. Period is 2 pi over the frequency, which is 2 pi over a half. When you're dividing by a fraction, this is an algebra thing. You multiply by the reciprocal. And my period is 4 pi. Now that I have all my information, I start with my midline. 1, 2, 3, 4, -5. My amp is 3, so I'm going up 3 and down 3 from the midline. That's -2, that's -8. Now my x-axis, 4 dashes, 1, 2, 3, 4. My period goes at the end of the fourth dash. Now it's a positive sign. So positive sign starts at the midline and then goes up. So I'm going to start at the midline. Then I go to my max, midline, min, midline. I draw in my wave. Again, make sure all the points line up with your max, midline, and min, and they all line up with your dashes and your y-axis. And that's it. Number 3, amp, sine, freak, x, shift. Amp is 4. It's a negative sign. That negative in front does not affect the amplitude. That negative in front is telling us it's a negative sign. Freak is 2 pi over 5. Shift is 2. The other piece of information I need is my period. Period is 2 pi over the frequency, which is 2 pi over 2 pi over 5. Again, when I'm dividing by a fraction, I keep change flip. I multiply by the reciprocal. 2 pi's cancel. I'm left with 5. So my y-axis, I'm going to start my midline. My midline's at 2. The amp is 4, so I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4 to 6, and down 1, 2, 3, 4 to -2. My x-axis, 4 dashes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Period goes at the end of the fourth dash. And now I'm going to look at my negative sign. Negative sign starts at the midline, then goes down. So I'm going to start at my midline, and then I go down, and then I go midline, and then I go up, and then I go midline, and I draw my curve in, and that's it. So I got one more straightforward graph for you. Amp, sine, freak X, shift, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to try it on your own. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to try it on your own. If you need a couple more minutes, feel free to pause this. Amp is 3. It's a positive cosine. Freak is pi over 10. Shift is negative 4. What's the other piece of information that I need? Period. Period is 2 pi over the frequency. And multiply by the reciprocal. Pi's cancel. I'm left with 20. So on my y-axis, my shift is negative 4. So I start with that. My amplitude is 3. So I'm going up 3 to negative 1 and down 3 to negative 7. My x-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4 dashes. Now that I have that, it's a positive cosine. Positive cosine starts at the max, then midline, then min, then midline, then max. So, max, midline, min, midline, max. And there it is. So those were 4 just straightforward graphs. Now we're going to go in the opposite direction. We're going to write the equation given the graphs. So again, it's y equals amp sine freq x shift. Always start with the midline. The midline helps you find everything else. And the midline is the min plus the max over 2. So my min and my max are 2 and 8. And I get 5. And I want you to draw in the midline again so you can more clearly see what's going on. So, amp sine freq x shift. Amp. Amp is the distance from the midline to the max or the midline to the min from 5 to 8 is 3. Is this a sine or a cosine, positive or negative? Well, it's starting at the min. Because it's starting at the min, it's got to be a negative cosine. Frequency. Well, frequency is 2 pi over the period. The period is where the full wave ends. It's very important you understand what period means. It's where the full wave ends. The full wave ends at 30. So frequency is 2 pi over 30. That reduces to pi over 15. My shift, again, I already found that. My shift is my midline. It's 5. So now we're going to put it all together. Y equals amp 3. Negative cosine. The negative comes in front. Freq X shift. My answer is choice 4. Start with the midline, min plus max over 2. Draw the midline in. Once you have that, you should be able to find the rest of the information from amp sine freq x shift. Frequency is 2 pi over the period, so make sure you first find the period, which is where the full wave ends, and you put it all together. Why don't you try number 6 right now on your own? I'll give you a couple minutes, then I'll go over it. Okay. Amp sine freq x shift. Start with the midline. The midline is the min plus the max over 2. Min is -2, max is 2, which is 0 over 2, which is 0. And this is one you might have been able to see that just by looking at it. And looking at the choices, they all have a shift of 0. So, amp is the distance from the midline to the max from 0 to 2 is 2. This thing starts at the max, so it's a positive cosine. Frequency is 2 pi over the period. The period is where one full wave ends. My period is 2 pi over 3. So when I'm dividing by a fraction, I keep change flip. I multiply by the reciprocal. The 2 pi's cancel. I'm left with 3. My shift, again, shift is midline, which we said is 0. So I now sub into amp sine freq x shift. Amp cosine freq x shift. Shift of 0 I don't need to put in. I could write plus 0 if I want, but you're not going to see that there. Choice 1 is your answer. We have one more example to go over. This is a modeling question, and of course the modeling questions, are a little bit trickier than the regular ones because you need to kind of wrap your head around what's going on and apply it to a real life situation, and this thing called reading you're going to have to do, which I know you all love doing so much in math. And I mean, the one thing I add to the notes for this is to make a little picture. If you make a little picture, you're going to find that everything's going to be a lot easier. Aditya's dog Sparky routinely eats Aditya's leftovers, which vary seasonally. I don't know if you guys let your dog eat your food. I do not let Milo eat his food. He's not down here. As a result, his weight fluctuates throughout the year. The dog's weight, W of t, as a function of time t in months over the course of a year, can be modeled by a sinusoidal function. At t equals 0, the start of the year, he is at his maximum weight of 12 kilograms. So at t equals 0, we're talking right here at the beginning, he's at his maximum. So the graph is going to start at the maximum, which it says is 12. Since it's starting at the maximum, it's got to be a positive cosine. So a lot of students say, how do I know if it's sine or cosine, positive or negative? It's starting at the maximum. Positive cosine is the only wave that starts at the maximum. 6 months later, now we're talking here, this is 6. this is times 0, this is times 6, he's at his minimum weight of 6. So halfway through is 6. He's at its minimum, which is also 6. Now, from here to here, this is half of a wave. If half of a wave is 6 months, then it's going to take another 6 months to get the full wave, which means the period is going to be 12. I'll say that again. From the max to the min is half of a wave. So if it's 6 months for half of a wave, double that, 12 months will be a full wave. Now that I have my little picture, I should be able to graph this thing. So that's going to be a little bit of an issue. I can fix that. Let's just pull this thing down a little bit. It lets me. That's not what I wanted to do. Sweet. So it's got to go up to 12, so I believe each box can be worth 1. That's not going to be an issue. I'm going to go by ones, but I'm going to label every other box. On my Y, since I have such a big box, such a big grid, I'm going to go every 4 boxes instead of 2 boxes, but either way I'm making my 4 dashes. It's not wrong if you went every other box. My midline, I didn't find my midline yet. So my midline is min plus max over 2, which is 6 plus 12 over 2, which is 9. So at 9, I'm going to make my midline. My min and my max are 6 and 12. My period goes at the end of the 4th dash. If I wanted to fill these in, I don't have to, but if I did want to fill in how much each of these dashes is, I can do the period divided by 4, which would be 12 divided by 4, which is 3. So each dash is 3. Again, you don't have to do that for this example, but if you wanted to, that's what you would do. It's a positive cosine. It starts at the max. So I'm going to get a different color. I'm going to start at my max, which I kind of darkened. I darkened my min and my max here to help me. Max, mid, min, mid, max. There's my wave. Now it wants an equation. Well, y equals amp sine freak x shift. Amp sine freak x shift. Such a great song, isn't it? Amp is the distance from the midline to the max, or the min from 9 to 12 is 3. This thing starts at the max. It's a positive cosine. Frequency is 2 pi over the period, which is 2 pi over 12, which reduces to pi over 6. And my shift is my midline, which is 9. Does it tell me any specific way it wants me to write it? Yep, W of t. So I'm going to write W of t equals amp cosine freak x, in this case x is t, shift. And that's it. This is the kind of thing that's like there's not many twists that come up in this unit if you know how to graph it, if you know how to write the equation, which are of course very much related, then it's pretty straightforward. If you don't, then you don't. So if you know it or you don't, and if you don't know it, go back to the lessons and practice it. All right, not a lot of twists. It's a pretty straightforward procedure going in either direction. So if you want to do well in this test, you need to practice. We're not going to have many tests this quarter, so this is going to carry a lot of weight. It's a short test. It's straightforward. So hopefully prepare for it and you do well. Your test is going to be tomorrow, but if you want to do it today, go for it. And any questions, reach out to me and remind. Have a great day, and that's all I got. Stay safe.